Well, it's still too early for a full garden tour, but things are happening out here. Today we're going to start some really fun summer crops, but first we're going to check on all the seedlings, both out in the greenhouse and all of the ones that are still inside. And I'm also going to share a sneak peek on how I'm getting an extra early start in the spring cutting garden this year. It is almost sunny out, but it is not all that warm out yet. And the only thing in bloom out here are the snowdrops that I showed you last week. There is a lot of foliage popping up though. The daffodils and tulips and some of the other early spring bulbs have started to come up, and I'm seeing signs of growth everywhere, but not really enough for a garden tour yet. So let's head into the greenhouse. I grabbed my camera and came out here pretty quick because I noticed on my weather station indoors that it was starting to get pretty warm in there. So we have to open up the door. This new floor has been fantastic. Woo, it is warm in here. So I have two of my outdoor thermometers down here, and I can't figure out how to change these to Celsius. The one in the house reads Celsius. This is reading Fahrenheit. So we'll do the conversions later. 61 Fahrenheit down on the floor. That is not all that warm for a sunny day. There's the other one. Can we read that? There we go. That one is reading 76.6, so that is significantly warmer. And the only difference being the cooler temperature is on the floor and the warmer temperature is at about 5 feet in height. So what I also do sometimes is open this window. And if it's not really sunny, that is enough, or if it's a midwinter's day. But if the sun is blasting, then I need to open that door, or it will hit about 30 degrees Celsius in here within a couple of hours. So these shelves are spaced around a little bit just to make sure that everything gets a decent amount of light. And at night, I group them all together and I toss the frost cloth over the top if it's going to be anywhere near the freezing point. And all of this stuff can handle a frost. And they've been subjected to about -2 degrees Celsius. And that's under the frost cloth. It was -6 outside. So a good amount of protection. And they can all handle a couple of degrees freezing. All of this stuff can handle a couple of degrees below freezing. That's no problem. But of course, their growth will slow down, and I don't want that. So let's see what is up here. This is a tray of parsley, and I had two varieties. The double curled didn't come up at all. This is peony, which is a flat-leafed Italian variety. That had great germination. The cilantro had great germination, and some of these I'll be potting up. Some of them will go into a large pot that's going to stay in the greenhouse. There's a small tray of sweet peas. You might be able to see through the window on my bench behind the greenhouse. That is all my potted tarragon. And it is coming up. It overwintered in the greenhouse too. Then we have an awful lot of ranunculus. Let's have a peek. I haven't checked these roots yet. Oh, that's looking good. Now I do have a plan for this ranunculus, which I'll tell you in a second. We have 8 trays of ranunculus in here. The bulk of this is ranunculus. So within a week, I'm going to free up an awful lot of space. There are some bunching onions, some green onions. Here are my 2 Meconopsis seedlings looking fantastic. And then the rest is just spinach. The 2 trays on the floor are stock. And then that one is the rest of the ranunculus. So I'm really carefully watching the overnight temperatures because I really want to get this ranunculus planted out. I'm also keeping track of the soil temperature. I have a little soil thermometer, and there are 2 rows up in the upper garden that I plan on planting first, and I have covered them in plastic. It's a little too cold for solarization to work properly, but I weeded it and I put the plastic down for 2 reasons: to help raise the soil temperature a little faster and to keep it a bit on the drier side, because we know this time of year we can get a lot of really heavy rains and you cannot work soil that is a muddy mess. When seed packets say as soon as soil can be worked, it's not necessarily just having thawed out from the winter if you are in a place where your soil freezes, but it's also that it is dry enough to be worked, because overly saturated soil can compact, it doesn't dig well, it sticks to everything, boots, shovels, whatever you're trying to plant. And so you really shouldn't be planting anything in a ground that is too wet. So once I am happy with the forecasted temperature over the next week, I'm going to go out and plant as much ranunculus as I can, both in those 2 rows and also into bulb crates. It's hard to tell the size of this greenhouse when it's stuffed full of seedlings, but it is roughly 6 by 9 feet. So what I'm hoping to do is line the whole front here with bulb crates. Now that I have the brick floor in, it's retaining a little bit more heat at night. By planting ranunculus in here, they won't have to be covered in plastic or a hoop outside. They can get a lot more light, but still stay in a sheltered environment. I can control the moisture, making sure that they don't get too wet in heavy rains, but also making it easier to water by not having to take plastic on and off all the time to get at them. And I'm going to try doing the same with the stock. I already have my bulb crates set aside in my basement grow room, and we're going to get roughly half of the ranunculus planted into crates and half of the stock, and then the rest, the other half of both, is going to go outside, and that is going to go under plastic, but it's going to be a bit of an experiment. We're going to see which one works best and the pros and cons of both. So I just rearranged things a little bit. I put a few trays up high to get a bit more of the heat. I wanted to expose these bricks so that the sun could hit them and hopefully warm them up a little bit. That way when I move those racks back to the center and group them all up overnight, hopefully it'll help them retain a bit more heat, because it is going to be a few degrees below freezing tonight, and I want to prevent them from getting too chilled. But this is also part of the hardening off process. By being subjected to really cold temperatures, it will help them once I get them planted out into the ground. Those ones that are going out in the ground, that is. And with the door open, they are getting a little bit of airflow. There's also a couple of windows on the ground that can be opened so that there is a little bit of airflow coming in right at the bottom of the greenhouse, but that only needs to happen when it's really warm outside. So when the ranunculus are planted in crates, if we have really hot days, we'll be able to get some cool breeze right on those plants where they need it the most. So now I'm going to actually close the door because the sun is gone for now and it doesn't look like there's a whole lot of blue sky left. I'm going to leave this window right here open. That way, if the sun does come out, it'll let the excess heat out while I am out, because I actually have to run down to the valley for a little bit, but I'll be back in about an hour, and then we're going to head inside. We're going to do those planting jobs, and then we'll have a look at all of the seedlings in my basement grow room. This is a lot harder with one hand. Next to the greenhouse, there are some of the snowdrops right there. There is nothing really happening in these rows yet. And in the raised beds, there are hints of lilies starting to come up. The larkspur looks fantastic. The Sweet William, I'm not sure. This is the first year I've overwintered Sweet William. Not sure if this is how they're supposed to look, but they are definitely alive. So the foliage of the saffron crocus stays through the winter and likely won't die off for another couple of months. That is normal, at which point I'm actually going to move those. And then there is daffodil foliage starting to come up in here, along with a little bit of overwintered feverfew. So hopefully these will all be really productive bets. This weather station is absolutely fantastic, by the way, and I highly recommend it. It's inexpensive, and I do have affiliate links for both Canada and the US in the description of this video, and of all of my videos, actually. So if you're going to pick it up, just make sure you grab the right link. It comes with 3 of those remote thermometers. One is in my basement grow space, and the other 2 you saw out in the greenhouse. It also will tell you the temperature inside. So this one acts as a thermometer too. Now, I do have a pretty lengthy list of seeds that I still need to start over the next 2 weeks. There's always a new succession in the works. The problem is right now, I don't have the space. I still have four trays and a few smaller things waiting to germinate right now, and my seedling rack is full. I almost bought a new one this year. I'm not really sure why I didn't. Next year I will definitely need a second rack. But seedlings that I still need to start are most of my tomatoes and a few more peppers. The only tomatoes I've started so far are my little dwarf cherry plants that I'm going to plant a little bit earlier in the greenhouse. So I have a ton of tomatoes to start and a few more peppers, only because I just got the seeds. I have cucumbers for my greenhouse. I have another round of herbs. I have a ton of flowers still. I need to start more sweet peas, and it's getting to the tail end of that. A bunch of Rebecca, because it doesn't look like the fall planted Rebecca has overwintered. I'm a little worried about that one. Agastache or Agastache, it's a perennial, a purple variety. I do have a white one, but I found seeds for purple. I have some double columbine, and some of these are for a seedling sale. I have larkspur, delphinium, and strawflowers that I still want to plant. Not a ton of each, probably just 1 tray, but I can't start them until I can move some of these things out to the greenhouse, which I can't do until I plant some of the things that are in the greenhouse. So it's a really delicate balance, and that's a bit of a struggle every year. But what we're going to do today is plant 3 things, and some of the really exciting things that are mostly just for fun. I want to plant turmeric and ginger and sweet potatoes, or rather start them. I've had them soaking in warm water since last night, and this step isn't completely necessary, but it does help speed the process along, especially since these are heat-loving crops, and I will probably keep them in the greenhouse all summer just to make sure they get the best growing season possible. But they need to be started pretty early, and really I could have started them months ago, but starting them now is better than not starting them at all. So they've been sitting in this container since last night in warm water. I already have trays prepared, and they are sitting on the heat mats too. We want to make sure that we keep these nice and warm while they're sprouting, and also when they're growing on later. So they're going to stay in here until the nighttime temperatures warm up as well. Even though they're staying in the greenhouse, I don't want to move them out until we're not getting anywhere near frost at night. So here they are sitting in the warm water, and I have everything jammed in together, which is fine because I can tell the difference pretty easily at this point. Now, it's usually pretty easy to find ginger like this in the grocery store, much harder to find the turmeric. So I was really excited to find it when I wasn't even looking for it. I have been keeping my eye out. I've gone out a few times specifically looking for it, and it hasn't been there. And I kept it in their containers just sitting on my heat mat to keep them warm, hoping that would speed up the sprouting process once I did get around to it. And that is what we're going to do today. We're going to start with the sweet potatoes. You can see they're not completely submerged in water. That's fine. I'm going to take the part that was submerged and push it a little more than halfway down into the soil. We'll top it up a little bit if we need to. I will cover them at the end, keep them right here on my heat mat. And that's really all we need to do until we start to see some significant growth. Next, I'll do the ginger, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to nestle it into the soil, making sure it's a little bit more than half. I'm not going to cover it because I want to keep an eye out for sprouts. We're just going to space everything as evenly as we can in this tray. Now with these ginger pieces, I could break them up into smaller pieces, but I want to see where the growth points are coming from first. So we're just going to leave them like that, and we'll break them up into smaller pieces later on once we see where the growth is coming from. Then we'll do exactly the same thing with the turmeric. Now some of these look a little shriveled up. I'm tempted to pitch them, but I think I'm going to keep all of them because I've been surprised before. Things that I didn't think would grow did end up growing pretty well. So we're going to keep everything, but I'll keep an eye on it too. If anything starts to go a little bit moldy, we can take that out and pitch it. And that's another reason why I'm not going to cover these completely with soil. Now the turmeric is already in pretty small pieces, so I put them really close together but not touching. And same thing, we're going to keep an eye out for anything that might not sprout, start to get a little moldy. Otherwise, we're going to place them right here on this heat mat, and then we will just check on them every couple of days, make sure they don't dry out, and watch for growth. So now we can go and take a look at those seedlings on my grow shelf. But because life happened and I ran out of time, it's actually been about 10 days. But the good news with that is I can give you an update on the sweet potatoes, the ginger, and the turmeric because things are happening. So on my table, I currently have just a tray of northern sea oats that had sort of spotty germination. So I'm going to take these out of their cells. I haven't even actually checked the roots yet. Oh, pretty good. The soil's holding together. That's a good sign. I'm going to take these and I think I'm going to put them just into maybe 1 or 2, maybe 3 bigger pots. And I think I'll use them in containers. There really isn't enough to go in the cutting garden, but I think they'll look great in a decorative container or a pot. Now the turmeric first doesn't look like anything has happened, but I can see a couple of swollen pieces. So I think it is happening, but it's very slow. Let's actually see if there's any root development on this. I can't tell. There might be some teeny tiny bits of root, nothing substantial. I'm actually going to put the dome back on top of that and we'll tuck it back in. The ginger though, things are happening. There's multiple shoots on most of these. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 on this one. This one does, oh no, there is one right there. So we've got lots of things on the ginger, and at this point I'll probably give it another week or 2 and then maybe, yeah, see there's still no root development, but there are shoots, so they might need to be buried a bit more for roots to develop. I can't remember what I did last year. So these need heat more than anything. I mean, there are some shoots developing on that and they're leaning a little bit towards my grow shelf, but at this point They don't really need a lot of supplemental light, so they're going to stay on the heat mat because heat is much more important. Almost everything I've seeded in the last 2 weeks has started to grow. This is just a tray of Rebecca. It's Cherokee Sunset. There is nothing happening on here, so I'm about to give up on that one. And the sweet potatoes surprised me actually how quickly they have developed. There is 1, 2 shoots right there and some baby ones. There we go. Just starting to develop on that one. So there is roots growing. I don't know if the light will adjust. Oh yeah, there in the corner you can see there is roots. So that sweet potato popped up really quickly. Now I think I've moved a couple of things out to the greenhouse since I gave you that greenhouse tour. At least some status. I actually managed to acquire some Lysianthus and maybe a couple more things. But let's take a look at what's growing here. And a lot of this has been seeded in the last week. We have peppers, and these need to be potted up this week. I have 3 varieties on here. There's Yankee Bell, King Arthur, and this one is Carmen. Just bell peppers. We don't need a lot of spicy peppers. These are my dwarf tomatoes. Camera has to work hard to adjust for the light on these grow shelves. These are dwarf tomato plants called Red Robin. I loved them last year. There's quite a few there, but I'll probably sell some. There is a perennial. This is just germinated. You probably won't even be able to see. Yeah, teeny little shoots. This is a purple type of Agastache, and then my Gomphrena is there in the back. Let's move this. There, Gomphrena is here and just barely starting to germinate. Same thing, it hasn't even all popped up yet. Down here I have finally started all of my other tomatoes. So if you look carefully, you might be able to see all of those varieties back there. Too many varieties to bother going over. Some of them haven't even popped up yet, so I take this tray and I put it back on the heat mat overnight, just for another couple of days. Now I have 2 interesting things here. These were seed packs I had bought years ago and never got around to planting, but I thought I'd want to give it a try. Thunbergia Blushing Susie. I completely forget what that looks like. And this one, Cardinal Climber. So, oh yes, Thunbergia. That is a Black-Eyed Susan vine. Called Black-Eyed Susan vine because it has similar flowers. I don't believe it's actually related to Black-Eyed Susans. These ones are my Sugar and Spice Marigold, light yellow color. Just starting to germinate. They haven't even gotten their true leaves yet. Some of these things are a little bit older. You can tell by those trays that there's sometimes spotty germination. There's chicory there in the back for the vegetable garden at the school. The rest of it are Rebecca. There is some snapdragons. I think one of them's a perennial. The sweet potatoes we've already seen, but behind that are some eggplants for my neighbor. Those are looking great. This is the ageratum, Timeless Mix ageratum, and behind that are some trays of sweet peas. As soon as those germinate, they're going to go outside to the greenhouse. They much prefer to grow cold. Then we have Salvia Victoria Blue. These are growing a little bit slowly. They're due for a feed, actually. That reminds me. I fed the greenhouse yesterday, but not this one. This is a full tray of basil. You can probably imagine that smell. Now this tray desperately needs to be potted up. We have some lettuce. We have some poppies. We have some dill. Let's see if I can pull this out. We have some dill, and then back there you can just barely see, we have some mountain mint, which is supposed to be perennial. The dill's looking a little bit sad, actually. It's gotten root bound. And then you have my entire tray of asters, 120 something. Probably also need to be potted up. Yeah. Next we have Didiscus, or lace flower. One tray is pink, one tray is blue. These took forever to germinate. I was checking on them every day for a week, and then I missed checking on them for a few days, and they popped up in the dark, which means they got pretty leggy. Now some of them are going to be okay, but I think some of them might end up being a bit too leggy to salvage. This is my last round of status, so just barely popping up. Mostly just the seed leaves. And then we have rat tail status. So these were broadcast seeded in a small tray. I just separated them about a week ago and actually had some empty space. So I seeded some more and they're starting to come up now. So that actually looks relatively tame, but that's because many things have moved out to the greenhouse in the last week. And even better news is that this weekend is going to be my first big planting weekend, and I'm hoping to empty the greenhouse almost completely. We're going to go to the school, we're going to plant all the vegetables, and we're going to plant as many of the flowers that are in there as possible. Since I saw you last in the first half of this video, I have planted all the ranunculus, and then with that extra space in the greenhouse, moved a bunch of things out. I'm really glad our overnight temperatures are hovering slightly above freezing now instead of slightly below freezing, because that is what I've been waiting for to bring the soil temperature up just enough to be able to do all of this planting. So I cannot wait, and I hope you'll join me then. Thanks for watching.